Hey guys, Shane McMurray from the Wedding Report. In this episode, I interview Jerrell, who's a professional photographer in Austin, Texas. Check it out. All right, so Jerrell, let's talk about your business. Tell me where you're at, what you do, and anything else you want to tell me about your business.
Absolutely. So, right now, I'm in my fourth year in business as a wedding photographer. And I don't only shoot weddings, I do shoot other things like corporate events and portraits, but my primary focus is weddings.
Hmm.
I just moved to Austin, Texas about 2 years ago. So, I kind of had to start all over again about 2 years into the business.
Hmm.
But where I'm at right now, I'm just trying to connect with venues, planners, obviously couples, and just looking to grow my business as much as I possibly can without overworking myself.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, so how do you like Austin so far?
I love Austin. It's been really good to me so far, and I'm a really laid back guy. And the vibe here is exactly kind of how I am and matching perfectly. Everyone is real friendly. Haven't met a me person since I've been here, and just the type of brides and couples that I've attracted since I've been here have just been right in line with who my ideal client is.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. Austin's pretty laid back, you're right. Great
Yeah,
music scene, all that cool stuff. So,
very,
yeah.
very true.
So let's talk about kind of what goes into the work that you do, because a lot of times I think couples are just interested in the price point, and they don't really get into the value of what goes into the work. So I want to talk about the work part. So you meet a couple, you guys have your meeting. First of all, how do you interview? Like, do you meet with them directly, one on one, in person, or do you do mostly video kind of meetings? What are you doing these days?
So these days, I'm doing mostly just telephone calls, and I will
Okay.
have the occasional video chat. And then sometimes there are some couples who are like, "No, we have to meet you in person before we move forward." So I'm okay with all three, but primarily I just do phone calls right now
Hmm.
as like the first point of contact after they inquire on my website or email or call me.
Hmm.
And so just to kind of give you an overview of kind of what goes into everything, basically as soon as I get that inquiry, then I'm checking to see, first of all, am I free for the wedding date?
Sure.
That's number. Once I am, then I reach back out and say, hey, let's schedule a quick phone call. And then I try to get that on the calendar within the next 3 days maximum, just so, um, you know, obviously I know that when they went to my website, there's something that stood out to them that
Yeah.
made them want to reach out to me. So I would like to connect with them while they're still kind of feeling that, whatever connected them on my website.
Yeah.
And so then we have our phone call, and I like to get to know about how they've met and kind of what their vision is for their day.
Hmm.
And I definitely try to get a sense of what they're looking for from their wedding photographer to see if I would be a good fit. So typically, if they're saying they want candid photos, if they want somebody that they can have fun with instead of kind of having that rigid like client photographer type of relationship where it's more like a friend is there with you at the wedding,
Yeah.
then I know that this is a couple that I'm going to work well with.
Hmm.
And so while we're on the phone, I ask them details about their wedding, and I put together a custom quote with them over the phone. And then I email that information to them as soon as we get off the phone call. So they're never in the dark about what the investment would be like to work with me.
Hmm.
And obviously, I'm very upfront about what I offer and what they're going to get for what they pay. And so obviously, if they do move forward and on their wedding day, I show up dressed very well. I know of any sensitive family issues that they may have via a questionnaire I send after they book.
Hmm.
And I show up just ready to have fun.
Yeah.
I enjoy what I do. I dance, with the couple on dance floor. I cake.
Yeah.
I meet with relatives, and I really try to celebrate with them, kind of like an insider instead of like an outsider.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That makes sense.
and one thing that I have started doing that couples love is I actually do same day slideshows. And so I don't know if I've ever really heard of a photographer doing this before.
Mhm.
So basically, as soon as the reception starts, I sneak away. I go sit at a table with some guests. I bring my laptop and my iPad. I edit the highlights of their wedding day from the time I showed up until that moment, right? So detail shots, ring shots, the first kiss, walking down the aisle, the portrait session, the first look, wedding party. And then my goal is before they finish their dinner, I bring my iPad over and they're able to watch highlights of their day
Wow.
that they just experienced. And people love it. Typically, there's a crowd that gathers around the bride's table as they're watching it for the first time. Mom loves it. Wedding party loves it. All the vendors love it. And it's really a highlight of the day. And then I go put that over by the bar or like a high traffic area, and people can look at the highlights, because people, guests, they only showed up right when the ceremony happened.
Yeah.
And so they're able to see like the behind the scenes photos and everything leading up to that point. It's really a highlight of the day for everybody.
That's a really great idea. That's a really great
Yeah,
idea.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so there is a lot of work that goes into what I do. I try to make sure I'm as professional as possible at all times. I try to make sure that the bride knows that everything's going to be okay. We might be running behind schedule, or she might feel like something's wrong. But as a photographer, I'm with the bride
Yep. A
more
lot.
with more than any other vendor, really.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
and so ability to be that person that's keeping her calm, letting her know that the groom is doing good, that we still have time to do those photos she asked me about, and that I'm gonna take care of her. And so that's like I said, there's a lot of work that goes into what I do, and I really take pride in providing the best experience possible for my couple that I work with.
How many hours, I mean, how much time do you spend before the event though? Like how many hours would you say you spend working with the couple to try to get things ready for the day?
Um, Not very much. So we connect over the phone, and we hash out a lot of those details in our initial phone call.
That's good.
And that's the information I use to come up with the quote that I send them. So I'm asking them all the questions about their wedding party size. If they don't have a timeline, then I will hop on Google and look up what time the sun sets on their wedding day, and I will suggest a timeline to them. And a lot of times they end up going with that timeline
That's
if
great.
they don't have one yet. And so a lot of that work is done at the very beginning.
Mhm.
And so when they hire me, they already know kind of what's happening when I'm showing up and leaving and what they'll be getting. And
Yeah.
so before that point in the wedding, I have a few email check-ins just to allow them to send me the official timeline in case anything changed. Obviously, we have our engagement session during that time,
Yeah.
and we kind of coordinate that. But like I said, I try to take care a lot of that in the front, so just to kind of take that little extra load off their shoulders,
Yeah. Sure.
because wedding planning is it's just you're
Yeah. It's
spinning
crazy.
75 plates, and I just want to be able to take one or two off of that
Yeah, for
load.
sure.
Yeah, that's how I approach that.
So how many hours you say how many hours would you spend do you spend at an actual wedding day? What is your day like? 10 hours? Is it an 8-hour day on average?
So it varies. The typical time a lot of people book wedding photographers for is 6, 7 hours.
Yeah.
But some of the packages that I've offered in the past, I mean, I've shot 14-hour days, 12-hour days.
Yeah. Everybody
I'm
does.
showing up. Yeah, I'm showing up at noon and leaving at midnight, or showing up at 11 a.m. leaving at one a.m.
Right.
So it just kind of varies. It just depends on the size of the wedding itself, whether it's 50 guests or 400 guests,
Yeah.
the size of the wedding, and really just what the bride and groom want. If they really want a lot of shots, or if they just kind of want the highlights of the day.
Mhm.
Um, and so it varies, but yeah, I've shot 6 hours, I've shot 4 hours, I've shot brunch weddings,
Yeah.
and then I've shot 15-hour weddings,
Yeah, for sure.
um, and everything in between, basically.
What about after the wedding? How much time you spend editing photos and getting all that stuff together to get it over to them?
So it's funny you asked that. So over the past year, I've actually gotten very, very efficient with my editing.
Smart
And
man.
yeah, so right now, the industry standard that you'll find for most photographers to deliver a gallery is about 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And so actually, starting in 2020, I've cut that in half to 3 weeks because I'm able to knock out a wedding gallery pretty quickly. The hardest part for me sometimes is just finding the time
Yeah.
because I'm shooting engagement sessions, portrait sessions, and corporate events during the week.
Right.
Um, and then obviously finding time to do things I like and spend time with my family and not overwork myself. Um, and so, like I said, now I'm delivering galleries in 3 weeks. And, with my top package, I'm actually delivering the wedding gallery in 2 weeks.
Wow.
And so, yeah, so the idea there is by the time you get back from your honeymoon, you'll have your images about a week or two later.
Yeah.
So,
You're stepping up your game a little bit, huh?
yes, yes. And, a lot of times, or what I've realized in wedding photography is as a creator, as a creative, if you, I don't want to use the word limits, but if you put rules in place for how you want to operate, you always operate within those rules,
Mhm.
or I guess I'll say it this way, like if let's say you have a paper due in college,
Yep.
if it just says, hey, the paper is due in a month, then you'll take a month to do it.
That's right.
You'll might do it that last day, but you will use all of that month. But if they say, hey, the paper's due in 2 days, you finish the paper. Put those limits and rules on myself just so I can provide like I said, an even better experience for my
Yeah.
client.
That's awesome. So if I'm going to hire you, what does your starting package look like, cost wise?
So yeah, so right now my starting package is 2,700.
Okay.
That's slightly above the national average, which I believe is 2,500, somewhere in there. So it's slightly above that. But you are getting 7 hours of coverage when a lot of photographers' packages, and mine included, usually start at 6.
Hmm.
So you are getting that extra hour, which can make a big difference in what a photographer is able to capture on your day.
Yep.
And it maxes out at around $5,000 for my top package, and that will include engagement sessions, second shooters, fast delivery times, travel anywhere in the state of Texas for free, and
Hmm.
and a few other things like that. And also included with every single package is that same day slideshow that I talked about.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, the reality is everything's kind of custom in the wedding space, right? I mean, every event's different. Everybody needs some different things, but yeah, I get it totally. Awesome. So for advice for couples getting married today, what advice would you give them?
So that's a good one. So one piece of advice I would say is, I think that everybody, they want great images on their wedding day. Um, but I think what happens is if a couple goes to a website and they fall in love with the photographer and their work, but they get to the budget or they get to the investment or pricing page, and the photographer is just slightly outside of their budget, a lot of people will just dismiss that photographer. But honestly, choosing a photographer isn't, and videographer, it's really, you're choosing a creative person. And that being said, I feel like you need to focus on finding the right person to work with instead of finding the right price to work with. And now, obviously, let's say your wedding budget is 2,500, and you find a photographer whose starting price is 10 grand, then that might not be the right fit. But if your starting price is 25 and photographer is 27 or 28, I would encourage you to reach out to that photographer, get to know them, learn more about how they approach your day, and if it's the type of person you feel like you can spend all day with, because you will, and you feel like you can trust them with the intimate moments of your day, then I would urge you to find a way to find a little extra money in your budget and work with that person, because that is it's all about that human connection.
Yeah.
And I know that, we have to make sure we stay within the realm of our budget so we don't just go over budget on every item.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, just reach out and make that connection and say, hey, I love your work. We really vibe with you well. This is our budget. You're a little bit above that, but what can you do for us? How can you work with us? And what can we get for what our budget is? And
Yeah.
you'd be surprised what how photographers are willing to work with you when they know that you're sincere and want to work.
Yeah. Well, that's true, but I think also too, like if you're only $300 more than your budget and you have a really good connection, you might say, look, I'm going to take a little bit of money from something else and I'm going to apply it to this because this is really, it's really about where people value the thing that they want to do. Like I interviewed a bride the other day, and her most important stuff was the venue,
Yeah.
uh, the food, and photography. Everything else, she said, we're just going to DIY the decorations. We're going to, this and that, and no big deal, right? But those were her main priorities, and um,
Absolutely.
that's where she was spending her money on, right? So, you know,
Yeah. I get it. I totally get it.
yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the business side of this. So tell me what's working well right now for you.
So what's working well right now for me is just connecting with more venues. It's really working well because I don't. So here's my thing. I don't like to sell myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I really enjoy the. I really like when able to not sell me, but communicate the value that I offer. Because I think that if you talk to anybody, everybody's going to say they're the best, and you should work with them. But when you can get those that information from a third party or a different source, then you know it's genuine, and you know that it's not something that I told them to say or do on my behalf. So I'm really trying to connect with venues that I've worked with and kind of communicate my value and let them know about how I work
Yep.
and the value that I can add for their brides. And that has allowed me to make great connections with venues, and which has allowed me to book more weddings. And another thing that that has worked well is Facebook ads. Now I don't do them very often, but a lot of times what I'll do is I will offer free engagement sessions to couples here in Austin, and I basically use that as a way to connect with the couple, give them kind of a preview of my services, so where they can see, okay, this is how my personality is,
Yeah.
um, how I dress, this is my demeanor. And once we have that great experience, then that typically translates into a good wedding day experience. And they're more likely to book their wedding day with me. So I've been doing that, and kind of those two things have been working rather well for me since I've been
That,
into it
that's
all.
great. Great ideas. On the flip side, what's not working so well?
A lot's now. I'm playing.
Hey, but this is how business is, man.
Yeah,
This is
yeah, yes. I will tell you one thing that doesn't work for me is offering a discount or a sale on Facebook.
mhm,
I've if you're trying to book a wedding and you're trying to, especially moving to a new city and kind of having to restart, hit the
yeah,
reset button. You're trying to generate business. A photographer may put on a sale, 250 off, 500 off, 750 off, 1,000 off. I've tried all those,
yeah,
and those don't work for me. I'll get a few inquiries or leads from those type of ads, or like a pop-up ad on my website,
right.
and then they come in the door, and I give them the price. They seem excited, and then they just ghost me, and I'm
Mhm,
not sure. And I think a reason for that is, I think when you put the price as like the number one motivating factor, then you kind of turn them into a price shopper, and maybe they wouldn't have been otherwise.
yeah,
But if you put that at the forefront, then it's like, okay, that's great, but then maybe I found somebody for $5 less, and that's what I'm going with. So that doesn't really work for me. And honestly, I tried the knot last year, And it just, I know that some people have had success on Manad and sites like Wedding Wire, but it just didn't really work for me at all. And
Yeah.
so,
Do you feel
yeah.
like people are just price sensitive in general because we're so I don't know. I feel like I'm bombarded with sales and discounts like constantly, right? Like how many times you go to buy a tire, and if there's not a 40% off deal on your attire, you're like, I'm not even gonna look at it, right? I mean, that's the way I feel
Yeah.
almost sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I think that we are bombarded daily with a sale or a discount of some sort. Somebody trying to sell us something.
Hmm.
And um, and then I also think that, with wedding photography, this is probably going to be the most money these people are ever going to spend on a photographer in their life ever again.
Yeah, for sure.
And so when it comes to those two factors, I think that they have like a heightened sense of, okay, you know, yeah, they're offering a sale, but this person might be $200 cheaper. And they kind of, like I said, disregard the human element of it and who this person is. And it all just kind of ends up being, what's the bottom line?
Yeah.
And if they don't fall below that line, then they're not even considered.
Yeah. Well, if people
Um,
are price sensitive, right, that they're already like, oh, well, I don't care about, I just need to see the price, right? Well, and it's really about what's important to them. So if photography is not an important thing to them, like, hey, man, I don't care if everybody just takes pictures with their iPhones or their phones, right? Or somebody just comes and shoots and gives me the thing at the end. I'm good with that. Um, some people are like that, right? So, I mean, for them, it's just about the price point, right? I need, this, I need, oh, come 4 hours, shoot this. I'm not willing to pay more than 1,200 bucks, right? I don't know. It just depends. Yeah, agreed.
yeah, I mean, I think it depends, but I feel like on the flip side, then that is when you have the horror stories. That's when people are going on an online forum saying, "Hey, I mean, scrolling through Facebook, I'm in certain like wedding vendor groups,
Yep.
and I swear every week it's like, hey, my photographer canceled on me. My wedding's in 4 days. My DJ just said I'm not doing it anymore. Like I hear those stories every week, every month. And so, I mean, it's so cliche, but you do get what you pay for.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when you're paying the lower prices for things, that is when you're getting the people that aren't doing their craft full time or are just getting started, even if they are full time. But, you know, I've heard stories of people who were doing like photography or videography, but then like got a job offer,
Hmm.
and so then they took the job offer and cleared the calendar because they had to.
Yeah. Now they
Um,
can't do the
so
wedding, right?
yeah, exactly. And then the couple is like, I saw a story was like, hey, my photographer canceled and my wedding's tomorrow.
Oh,
I've
geez.
seen that a few times, and so that's why I say it's really important to make that phone call and just reach out and just connect with whoever's going to be there on your wedding day and see like, hey, do you do this full time? Have you ever canceled? Like, what's your philosophy? And I think that, like I said, budget aside, that will help you make a much more informed decision than just price, 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 price,
Yeah. Yeah.
because that's when things can go south really quickly.
Yeah. So, what advice would you give people that are coming up in the business, just getting started
Mm.
or thinking, what advice would you have for them?
Two things, and I got this advice from a good friend of mine, Jay Wiggins. He's a photographer. I think he still lives in Oklahoma City. When I was just getting started, he said, "Do not charge anything until you are ready." And he said, "You'll know what that means. You just trust me." And I get it. And here's why. Just a quick backstory. Back in 2011, I bought my first camera. I shot a couple weddings for free, and they weren't good. Obviously, I was just getting started. I didn't know what I was doing. And some people will say, well, you have to get started. But deep down inside, I felt like I was ruining their wedding day by not giving them good photographs.
Yeah.
So I didn't shoot a wedding for 3 years. And all I did was shoot free portraits, everything, parties, babies, kids, families, seniors, until my skill level caught up to what I wanted to do. And then at the end of 2015, I shot my first wedding, my comeback wedding, I guess you could call it. And it was just seamless. I just was in the zone. And that was the moment where I said, okay, I shoot weddings now.
Hmm.
And so, number one, I would say, I know you bought the camera and you want to make money, but please just take time to learn your camera, hone your craft, get really, really good at what you do, and that way, when you come out the gate, you can charge way more than if you just start out and you're shooting a wedding for $300. You can come out the gate charging $1,500.
Yeah.
That's number one. And number two, I would say, is shoot the way you want to shoot. I know that if we look online or on pictures, we might see a lot of details and we might see the light and airy look, or we might see the super creative prisms and stuff.
Hmm.
But don't ever try to mimic or imitate anyone. Shoot exactly how you feel, shoot what you see, and then that is what is going to attract the clients to you. Because the last thing you want is to be looking up one day and, let's say, you have all this work on your website, clients expect that from you now. And then one day you wake up and say, you know what, I don't like shooting this stuff. But then that's what everyone expects. And you're gonna have to do a whole brand shift. So from
Yeah.
day one, shoot what you want to shoot, the lenses, the aspect ratios, the and then that will be how your brand will grow naturally without you having to force yourself on
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So last thing, what's your best, worst wedding or business story you got for me?
it. Well, you know what? So this is gonna be an unexpected answer, but I will say that my best wedding story is the fact that I haven't had any worst wedding story.
I love it.
um, yeah, I every single and maybe I'm just an anomaly, but I haven't had one bad client. I haven't had one person like get drunk and pass out or start acting crazy. I had none of that. Every client I've connected with has been super laid back. They trust me. The wedding goes off without a hitch, and people still party and do their thing, but it's never gotten out of hand. And I
That's good.
mean, it so far it's been incredible. And so I think that that's kind of my best worst all wrapped into one.
That's,
I've had nothing but great clients to work with so far.
that's pretty awesome. Jerrell, thanks, man. I appreciate your time. Appreciate you doing this.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Shane.
All right. Hey, thanks for checking out this episode. I hope that you found it helpful. Please share it with other people. Also, if you're getting married or you work in the wedding industry, I would love to interview and share your information with other people. Send me a text 520-399-8580 or shoot me an email at letschat@wedding.report.